wedding tomorrow?
I have to move tomorrow.
Well, that's a good question. What's worse, going to a wedding or moving?
I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, I think you've got me beat. Even
I'll
though
happily trade spots with you.
Yeah, well, you want to go up to Massachusetts for a wedding? Be my guest. Get the mosquitoes. But... All right, friends, it is officially that time. Now, yes, we did kick off college football last week with week 0 here, but now we're getting serious. Stokastic college football live before lock. We are ready to go. 12 games, week 1, all sorts of teams. Yes, there's some blowouts, but there's also some marquee matchups, some big-time games. We're going to bring everything down of what you need to know, how to get the best tools in the industry, and everything else to make some money today. I am Ben Rez. I am joined, of course, by the man himself, Matt Gajewski. Sir, we got a little appetizer last night. Some horrific football was on my TVs. Now we hope to rebound. We got a lot to get to, but how are you feeling on week 1?
It's just classic college football. Anyone who's an NFL fan but missed football, dipping their toes in the waters, you get a bunch of missed field goals by Minnesota on Thursday. Whatever last night's display of offense was, I'm not even sure we can call it offense in some cases, and a lot of FCS, FBS football. So luckily we turned the page and we have some elite games today. Some are on the slate combined with some blowouts, so we'll get into it all.
Yeah, at one point last night, Michigan State was going like full SCLSU mud dogs, and just they should have taken a knee on offense because their defense was just producing all the points and their offense was killing them. But you know what? We turned the page. We'll get into some betting as well here. But like I said, we've got a ton of games. Chad, I already see you guys ready to go. If you can, right off the bat, 2 things. 1, always hit the like button. It really does help us out. 2, 98,000 of you are part of this team here at Stokastic. We need 2,000 more of you. And I know you're out there. Know you want to be part of it. Always can hit that subscribe button. We have so much good content coming up, but we got some good games coming up, and we start with a good one, a really good one. It's in Atlanta, Clemson, Georgia. If you would ask me, I would have assumed this game was at 8 at night. Nope, it's at noon Eastern. So we get a great game right off the bat. We do have a double-digit spread for Georgia. It's come down a little, pretty reasonable total. So these are really good teams, no doubt about it. The question I have for you are they good DFS teams today?
I think they're okay DFS teams. There's a lot of blowouts, so there's just going to be some teams where probably going to X out. So anytime you get semi-competitive spreads, I think it's somewhat interesting. Clemson, there's not a ton offensively, I think, to really look at here. You have Klubnik under center. I do think his mobility was compromised last year, but it's still not a main component of his game. And unless he's taken major strides as a passer, we're looking at a team that's just 41st in pace, 48% pass rate, nothing real special there. It's going to require a lot of negative game script and just straight volume from him. The problem is he's even harder to stack than previous renditions of Klubnik with their 5-star freshmen they bring in. So it's not, I don't really think I'm going to approach it and take many stacks on Clemson, but Maffa no longer has to contend with Will Shipley. If you're looking for a contrarian play at running back, he is somewhat interesting to me.
When you look at this game, yeah, you mentioned obviously stylistically you play out in a couple different ways. Is this a game where you're looking to, because we have 12 of them, last week we were forced into some weird stacks and whatnot. Is this a game that you're looking to stack up, or on the Georgia side, what do you see there?
Georgia, you can stack back. He actually has, like a similar game to Klubnik, except he's, way better. Guy that can easily eclipse 300 yards through the air, and Clemson's defense lost 7 real contributors. So I don't think they're going to be quite as good. People will probably argue that the recruits just step up, but he's also hard to stack. You have legitimately 5 receivers that could potentially get on the field and play a lot for this team. My favorite would be Lovett, but even the tight end position, it's now Jurasic and Delp. So that's a little tricky for me. You can go to the backfield, though. We no longer have Trevor Etienne. He is suspended for this game. You finally have Georgia taking a stand on some of their driving stuff. And with that, Branson Robinson should also come into play because Roderick Robinson is out with a toe injury. Now, they like to rotate back, so I wouldn't just assume he gets 100% of the work, but he should be the favorite for carries.
Are there any other, there's a million guys on this list. Are there other backs that are playable, or they could just serve as a cannibalization to Robinson?
I'm not sure who it is. They don't have a lot of clarity with this backfield. So it's just going to be Robinson or pass for me. This is a showdown though, so there might be some guys you get to there.
Any cash viable favorite plays from this game?
I would say Robinson is a outside consideration and Moffa are the two best plays. Probably neither in cash.
Nate Frazier, that's another Georgia back. Seems like an unknown flat min.
I think he's the one that I have projected highest of these groups. I'm still building my lineup, so I'm just not taking the time to look, but I'm pretty sure it's him.
Yeah. This should be, like I said, it's a real good real life game. You see, 49-point total. And there's a lot of totals. This is not, if you look at the sidebar, there isn't that much that's jumping off the page like that. Anything else from this game, or can we move on to the Hokies?
We can move on to the Hokies.
All right. We got Vanderbilt and we got Virginia Tech. Obviously, Virginia Tech's probably the more pertinent side. It's a methodical total, and the team total is certainly skewed in Virginia Tech's favorite. You've got drones. You've got backs that know what they're doing. You've got a lot of pieces here. I don't think Vanderbilt's the best dance partner in the world, but what do you look to with some of these Hokie pass catchers?
So Drones is definitely someone you can play. Stacking him, I think, is very tricky. He's not the best passer, but he has elite mobility. So this is something that you need to pay extra attention to. He's going to be the most owned quarterback on the slate. How you use him, I think, is going to be something to at least mention in this box. I'm not sure his pass catchers are going to come in with a lot of ownership. If you go to any of those guys, that might be a way you could play Drones and siphon off some of that ownership. If you run him naked, which I think is largely going to be the play that people use in cash, you might run into some like duplication stuff or some higher ownership. But if you do want to stack him, it's Daquan Felton, Jalen Lane, and Ali Jennings primarily. But yeah, Drones is awesome. He should be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. And from there, Tootin, I think, is interesting as well. He should be a player that gets a decent amount of ownership at his price. There's just a lot of good running back plays.
Any interest? We're going to talk about all our brand new tools and whatnot with the Sims and the single lineup simulator and all that. Any interest if you get Tootin with drones, or is that a no-no on 12 games?
I think you could do it. The team total for this team is pretty good playing Vanderbilt. So, I mean, it's above 30. Not a blowout. I wouldn't exclude it if you get it, if that makes sense.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. On the other side, Vanderbilt, their implied total is not healthy. Pavia and co, I don't know what to really expect from this offense. Not much. What do you expect from them?
They're changing OCs. It's basically going to be New Mexico State light in terms of offense. So kind of a gimmicky offense, a lot more running. That's what you get when you bring in Pavia. And I think their pass rate comes way down because of that. I'm also not 100% sure they used Pavia the entire game. They brought in Nate Johnson as well. This quarterback battle, they're calling it, went right up to the wire before they named Pavia the starter. So I don't think we have Pavia locked into a full-time role. The backfield's a complete mess, expecting a committee there, and they got pillaged in the portal at wide receiver. So I would not be stacking Vanderbilt whatsoever. This is like the deepest of GPP plays, and I don't think I'm going to get there at all. Maybe a naked Pavia here and there if you're playing a lot of lineups and some of the large field stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. Like I said, you got tough scenes in Vanderbilt, but certainly the other side of this game, just to recap it, I'm with you. Drones is awesome. He's going to have a big year, and I think it starts today. Moving on, because we're going to get through these. And again, during the show, if you have questions, you drop them in chat. We'll do our best at the end to recap as well. We're going to talk about a lot of good stuff throughout, but Penn State and West Virginia is a big time game. The spread has really come down. This was north of 10 for a while. Now it's not testing 7, but it's close. Drew Aller and co, obviously in the biggest of games, it hasn't been super efficient, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I guess my question to you though is, when you look at Penn State, is Aller giving you enough ceiling on a 12-game slate?
I strongly doubt it. Their total is really low. He doesn't run. He's actually not the worst runner, but they use Bo Pribula in that component of the game, and they're going to do that this season. I watched a lot of Penn State press conferences this offseason. I'm not sure why or how I choose to spend my time, but Pribula is going to have a role, and he's going to be gadgety. He's not quite like your Taysom Hill if you want to liken this to the NFL, but he does enough where I think it's not something you really want to mess with. Plus, the total's still low, even with Kotelnicki coming in. People might argue that that is going to lead to a lot more explosiveness. Books don't seem to really think so. The total's not even 50 points. The only thing I think you can really hang your hat on is this team waxed West Virginia last year. However, West Virginia did make a lot of defensive improvements. So I don't think it's a lock that this Penn State team just goes all out on offense and has an elite game.
Even with some of the potential limitations, what does it do to a guy like Fleming, the backs, things like that for Penn State, or is the entire team maybe not in the best spot?
They just split, and any of them could have a big game at any time. Actually, we see this with a lot of teams that just split their backs, like Ohio State at times, Penn State last year. If the touchdowns swing one particular way, the catches swing one particular way, these guys can easily have good games, especially because they do project to be efficient on the offense. I like Katron Allen more than Nick Singleton. I'm not sure why Singleton projects ahead of Katron Allen. If you just look at last year, more opportunities, more efficiency for Katron Allen. So he's the one I'd prefer if you're going to one, but I think it's in tournaments.
On the other side of this game, you know, one of if West Virginia is able to hang in, I think part of it is that they've made real strides. The other part's that it's in Morgantown, but a huge part of it is definitely going to be Garrett Green in this backfield. This guy knows what he's doing. He's got mobility. Big fan. He's 8,100 on DraftKings. Where does he fall in the quarterback rankings today?
He's a little lower just because I love the skill set, but I mean, he's going to be a pretty big underdog in this game. So it's just not really a spot where they're expected to score a lot of points. Now, everything's really volatile in week one. We know the least about these teams, but it's a 21-point team total. So that you're going to need them to certainly eclipse that and probably win the game outright for Green to hit his ceiling.
Does that render, you know, he's got some pass catchers around him and whatnot. Is there any West Virginia skill set players that are in play today?
Definitely not pass catchers. They actually added players. It would probably be Jaden Bray if I had to pick one, but don't feel super confident in that. The backfield, I love Jaheim White. His rushing props are concerning. You're looking at like the 55 to 60 range, depending on the book. He's a good pass catcher, but a lot of his explosive plays and heavy workloads last year came with Donaldson injured. He's healthy right now. We don't exactly know what the split would be. I would expect it to be pretty far in favor of White, but still 21-point team total will be a split, and Green runs quite a bit himself.
Anything else from this game? I did not bet it. I wanted to bet West Virginia and I just completely missed it. And now I don't think you can.
Agreed.
Okay. Before we get to the next game, which is, of course, Kent State is upon us, no better time to hold the audience attention before I mention Kent State. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have seen the news, and if you haven't, I'm about to tell you about it. We launched all of our college football packages. We revamped them to make sure that there's so many different options for everybody. And of course, the sims are now integrated. The single lineup is now integrated. We've got optimizers for all that. If you're on the Pick'em sites, all different tiers, all different packages. And it's all available. The link is below. And to celebrate it, of course, with week one, we want to do something special. 20% off your first payment on any of these stuff. Just use the code GAMEDAY. It's very, very simple. Obviously, Matt and the entire team did a fantastic job. If you're playing, these tools can make the difference. A lot of you have probably used them maybe for NFL or baseball or basketball. It's the same technology. It's the same. It's just brought to college football. Really, really cool stuff. I know personally the single lineup generally for someone that hand builds and plays in a lot of 3-max and stuff. Cannot wait to do that on NFL Sundays. So really, really good. But again, take advantage and save yourself a little money right off the bat with that code GAMEDAY. All right. Kent State, there's no avoiding it. They are here. They play Pittsburgh. This game should be deleted just from the ecosystem. How bad is Kent State? And are they... I've coined it the Bowling Green Irrelevant Award, but Bowling Green's more relevant than Kent State at this point. Is there anyone on Kent State that should ever be in these lineups?
Bowling Green's good now. They might win the MAC. We need to rename this.
I know. You should have seen them knocking around Fordham the other day. They looked very crisp.
That'll happen against Fordham, I guess. As far as Kent State goes, I think this team is when you can X out outside of McCray at receiver. He just might have like 16 targets because this team is so bad. With that said, what kind of efficiency are you getting on them? You might be looking at a high floor, low ceiling situation with McCray, but he's the only player I'd consider.
Yeah, tough scene. When you look at the other side, I think we're both pretty down on Pittsburgh this year, and I'm sure they're going to be exposed. I just don't think it's here. 24-point favorites. Does that bring a team that maybe has some problems? I know nobody's a bigger Nate Yarno fan than you, but in general, what goes on with Pittsburgh today? And because of the big favorite nature, are they in play?
They're in play, and it's risky. This might just be my bias because Pitt was so bad last year, but they're implied for 40 points. Their quarterback, they named Eli Holstein the starter. I think this guy has some rushing chops. I hesitate before I just lock him in as a rushing player, but I went back to really all his stops. He's been on the field a little bit in college, very small samples because he was at Alabama and he couldn't get on the field there. But his high school stats, he was a good rusher. So we're tentatively projecting him as if he's not a statue. We have 17 yards, which you'll take that over any sack yards you can get. Not that Kent State's going to rush the passer anyway. Immediately, that gives you a good floor. The efficiency is certainly going to be there through the air. You don't really need to be a world beater at quarterback to beat up on Kent State. So immediately, this should be something you look at, especially because I think some people probably think like me, and they're just, I don't know, have this negative bias towards Pitt. The real player who's interesting is Des Reed. Rodney Hammond was ruled ineligible yesterday. I'm not sure why, but prior to that, Reed was a guy who was getting a ton of hype in camp anyway. I was really surprised when beat reporters were talking about him starting this game over Hammond before we even knew about the ineligibility stuff. He projects extremely well, and he's 4.6K. You're probably looking around 20 touches for this guy, and he's priced as backup. So against Kent State with a 40 team total, should be the lead back. Reed is a really good play.
Cash game lock.
I think he's close to it. The only thing is they're going to kill this team. So maybe you see like Daniel Carter, Montrevious Lloyd, Derek Davis play a little bit. I'm not 100% sold, but I wouldn't be surprised. You see teams do weird things when you're blowouts.
No doubt about it. But yeah, as healthy of a team total as Pitt's going to have all year. And if I'll tell you, if they struggle here, they should just cancel the season. But I don't think that's going to happen today. Moving on, another big spread. UConn's made some strides. They still have some ways to go, clearly, as you can see. It's down to 19. They got that going for them. They're in College Park, take on Maryland. What's up with UConn in general? Who do they have personnel-wise? And is there anyone on this team, price-wise, very reasonable, but I'm not sure there's much there.
Yeah, reasonable because they're 19-point underdogs, 13 implied team total. I would X this team. They added a ton of talent. It's great for UConn in the long term. Really problematic for DFS because we don't have a strong picture of who's going to be playing what positions. We know that Nick Evers is going to play at quarterback. He's a former four-star. He's bounced around a lot of programs. Couldn't get on the field at Wisconsin, but he's at UConn, so probably a better fit level of competition-wise. But, I mean, they brought in a ton of guys. Like Skylar Bell came in from Wisconsin at receiver. TJ Sheffield from Purdue. Josiah Gaithings from Akron. So, yeah, they have their leading receiver back, Buckman, but what does this pecking order look like? UConn does not release a typical depth chart. They put guys in numerical order. It's basically who would be on the depth chart, but then not actually in order of who's going to play, just numerical. So it's as confusing as it gets. It's basically a copy and paste at running back. We know the four guys that should see work, but we don't know how much because they do bring in more players in the transfer portal. So it's just really muddy. I don't have any UConn.
Poor UConn, relegated to the shadow realm, but that's going to happen on a 12-game slate, and it's 45-point total. When you look at Maryland, obviously they get the lion's share of these points when you divvy it up, and they've got some guys that we've seen. I'm interested to hear what you think about the quarterback situation there. We got some news on that. Does that change your philosophy or just your thought on Maryland in general?
I still think they use two quarterbacks.
Okay.
It's Billy Edwards, but MJ Morris played this really close. I don't think either is particularly talented, which is tough because you probably want to get like some of these receivers. They all project reasonably well as pretty big favorites. They're all proven, especially like Ty Felton and Caden Prather. I think my approach is just going to be play more Hemby than the field. He's not owned today because of how many good running backs we have. So that's something I think you could look to is use Hemby maybe a little more than you would otherwise.
You have any situation where you would use Hemby plus a pass catcher, no quarterback? Just take, say, two of the three big options for Maryland and move on?
Probably not on this slate.
One thing I wanted to ask you, again, we have so many different games and stuff. I always like to ask you this at the top. Are you anticipating large majority double QB today?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. What do we got here? Yes. Now we get to the FCS streets. I mean, if you're going to those streets, you might as well go to the Jackrabbits because they're as good as it gets, but they are an FCS opponent. Weird game. I'm sure there's a reason, but they go to Oklahoma State. It's a really good test for both teams. Are you going to play an FCS school though when we've got so many other options?
No, I'm not. They are a reasonable FCS team, but they're continuing to bring, or their team totals continuing to come down. They're now 11-point underdogs against Oklahoma State, who's a very good Big 12 team. So it's just really tough to get to a team like this. They run the ball a lot. They have some coaching change stuff. I don't know. They use sometimes a backup quarterback comes in rushing wise situationally. Pretty nasty committee in the backfield. Their best receiver, Griffin Wade. Right now, he projects for 55 receiving yards. So just not sure what the ceiling is on any of these guys.
Yeah, again, it's an unknown that on a 12-game slate, I'm not sure that you really need to venture in there. And the line's really been moving. You know, this is something we'll talk about OddsShopper in a little bit, but this has continued this cross 10 and it's up to 12 in some spots. So a lot of love for Oklahoma State. And then let's talk about Oklahoma State. Obviously, they get the FCS opponent, but it's not a normal FCS opponent. Where are they? Certainly last year, every slate. Ollie Gordon was a guy that we talked about. He's $9,100 on DraftKings. He's very expensive FanDuel, or just all over the place. Where does he rank in terms of spend up options today?
He's earlier in the day and yesterday, I would have said probably not, but now you have Desmond Reed, you have Branson Robinson. We have some really cheap pass catchers like Gadsden, and it's not really hard to get him. Drones is not super expensive. I think he's reasonable at least, and he's probably the best overall signal caller on the slate. So if you want him, there's no real hindrance. It's pretty easy to get him. There are a lot of good running backs is the only thing. It's just like an opportunity cost, but you can't really drop a better workload than what Ollie Gordon's going to give you.
Anything else with them? You know, the pass catchers, obviously. Oklahoma State returns a lot of production. Is this something that we should look to, or is it pretty targeted to just Ollie Gordon from this game, and then for the rest, we can kind of mix and match elsewhere?
I think you can play Presley and Owens especially, and maybe some Dazon Stribling. They throw the ball a lot, and that doesn't really change all that much. Even when, you know, they're crushing teams in games, it's a pass rate well above 50%. Now, maybe it's a little lower here, but still, you definitely can target those pass catchers at the very least. I probably would just isolate it to those three. Bowman stacks are somewhat interesting. I actually don't think it's the best quarterback slate, so I have no problem getting to Bowman as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because just stepping back, and I know, you know, 6 games up, 6 more to go. We haven't talked about a lot of these guys, but when you look at the quarterbacks just in general, I mean, just rattling off salaries, you've got Beck, Cam Ward, Ewers, Drew Aller, obviously this other Georgia quarterback who doesn't count. There's not that much there. I mean, do you think that these, drones and guys like that, it really isn't a super, you know, price? I guess I'm trying to lead you to say, what do you think about pricing today? Is it extremely tight, extremely soft, somewhere in the middle?
I think it's pretty soft, but it's still kind of a lackluster quarterback slate. Now, I still want to play them in the super flex. It's just kind of, you have a lot of blowouts. So like Will Howard, do you play him? Do you not? How much does he get? That is very difficult to decide. Holstein, it's still a Pitt quarterback. So, I mean, there's a question there. Ewers is in a 35-point blowout. Rayola is he's a freshman. Ward and Graham Mertz are in probably the toughest matchup against each other. Same thing with Beck and Klubnik. Garrett Greenis to face Penn State. Their team totals down. So it's like the proven commodities for the most part, aside from drones, are either in tough matchups or have low implied team totals. So some of them are going to come in under own and some of them are going to have ceilings. I just don't know which one, but I'm going to try to spray to those guys. Bowman right now, he's kind of taking the position where he's somewhat proven. I don't think he's as good as those other guys, but their team total's at least good. So he's projecting pretty well.
Have you heard any news whatsoever, or is it, again, I don't even want to say speculation. Are you worried about Gordon having any repercussions from the Dewey, or you expect him full workload?
Well, according to Gundy, he's going to carry the ball 40 times because of that.
So he did probably get punished from his 60 normal carries.
Did you hear that press conference?
Oh, I
hear
heard
that?
it. Oh, I heard it. Believe me. I'm not the
That was
biggest-
obviously a joke, but I think what it means is that he's not getting punished.
Yeah, true story. All right, let's keep it moving. Like I said, we'll get to some of these questions, but we've got Colorado. Where are we here? Hold on. Colorado State and Texas. All right, we got good things here. It was perfect timing because friend of the show was just asking about the Colorado State quarterback. This is a team. I'll give people a little sneak behind the glass. You actually like the over in this game. Can you explain on that, and what do you think about Colorado State just in general?
Yeah, a little narrative-y, but about as big of a look-ahead spot as you could possibly get for next week with Texas playing Michigan.
Yes.
And this a competent offense. They throw the ball like 65% of the time. So the volume's going to be there. And even if it doesn't look pretty right away, I don't see any way that he's coming out of the game. So, I mean, Fowler Nicolosi should throw the ball a ton. I don't really want him himself. I would rather just play pass catchers. But I don't know. This is a tough situation overall, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this is a massive spread, and I don't think Colorado State's that bad. It's just Texas is a really good team, and they're down there, and it could be pretty ugly. But I think the more important thing for us to talk about isn't on the Colorado State side. It's the classic, how much do we really see these guys? How vanilla are they with a huge game on deck? What does that do to, we'll start with just Quinn Ewers. What does that do to him, or did you not really have interest to begin with?
Yeah, you should have a lot of interest in him. There's a massive team total, a defense which probably got worse. Still a pretty good defense, but yeah, I mean, if this is like what we saw out of Oklahoma yesterday, if they want to do it through the air, they're absolutely going to. I kind of think he's still fine. They're breaking in a whole new receiving core. I don't know if they show a lot, but I do think they try to get those guys the ball. A lot of them are young players and transfers. Little narrative-y, but it's just kind of what I think is going to happen. And this team total is massive. Plus, the opposing team plays fast. They pass a lot. That's going to give you extra opportunities.
To the backfield. Obviously, one of the many, things in the offseason, and that is Baxter got hurt. But, this is the type of team. They've got so many bodies. What is the order of operations for the Texas backfield? Is it a committee like Georgia style? Is there a bell cow like Oklahoma State? Is it somewhere in the middle? How do you think they divvy up the carries today?
So they lost a couple guys already. They lost a freshman, and they lost their, 5-star from last year, CJ Baxter. So they're very thin. And they actually went out and got Velton Gardner in the portal like 10 days ago. Now he's not even in the player pool, and I don't think he plays much anyway. He's practiced like 4 times. But Jaden Blue is the presumed lead back now. This guy is explosive. He's primarily been like a special teamer gadget play, but he's like the fastest guy on the field. He's going to get the first look. He's immediately underpriced to me just in this matchup with his role. From there, you will see multiple backs expecting Quintrevion Wisner and Jarek Gibson to get some work too. They're dart throws, but they will get some carries. So I have no problem if you want to throw them into some larger field GPP stuff.
On the outside, we talked about these guys a little bit, but just to clarify, with with Texas, the pass catchers, Bond and co, how big of a role do they have? Are there just too many bodies, or is this the type, one of them could consolidate a couple touchdowns and really give you some GPP upside?
This is, I think, really tough to decide. They've been very vocal about playing up to 7 receivers. So I think you're probably going to see that happen, especially in a matchup like this. It makes it really hard to play anybody. So I don't really know what to do with these pass catchers. I think I'm probably just going to avoid, if I had to rank them. Man, this is tough. It would probably be Bond 1, Jonte Cook 2, Silas Bolden 3, then getting down to like Matthew Golden 4.
Is Blue in play for cash, or is he just more a home run hitter?
You can definitely play him in cash.
Interesting. Anything else from this game?
I don't think so.
Okay. Like I said, we'll have some time for questions. And we did just have a question from Gordy about our best bets. I will say, I'll give you one in just a second, but the best place to find it, the links are below, is right in the Odd Shopper Marketplace. If you haven't been over there, that's what it's for. It's an absolutely awesome platform. It's brand new. It's guys like Matt, myself, all different creators giving you more access, whether it's data, picks, talking through things. I'm new to betting. How would you go about this situation? You get into the Discord, you're able to join the community. I've been enjoying it. So if you want to check it out, my link is below. Matt's is below. College football, you got two people that I think really love the sport. It'd be awesome to have some new faces in there. Obviously, it's growing quickly, but shout out to the Odd Shopper Marketplace. Go over there. For me, would I take West Virginia at 7.5? No, I wouldn't. I do lean to that side, but I think you missed the boat, as did I, for what it's worth. My favorite bet on the board, though, I'll give you a big game. I like Texas A&M tonight. I've fallen in love with that game. I think they kind of just overpower. I'm not sure about Notre Dame's offensive line, and I like Wegman in College Station, but yeah, if you've given out a ton of bets again, I'm betting you with me. How do you feel about that game? You're on.
I love that game. It's one of my favorites. I bet it. First game I ever bet this year.
Ooh, that makes me feel even better. All right, let's keep it going here. This is another game that I bet. Miami and Florida, real good game in Gainesville. Obviously, both of us are Miami. We're not fans. We just keep falling in love with this team. Apparently, they have vowed to have better logic or time management, as some call it. Cam Ward, though, he takes over. He's $9,000. What do you make of him? This is a guy that mobility didn't really show some crazy upside, but he's a damn good quarterback. Are you looking to pay up for him? Simple as that.
I think he's tricky. He's one of these players that's in not the best environment, and that's just kind of because their team total creeps down the board because you have so many blowouts like Will Howard and Quinn Ewers. They just project better than a guy who's in a competitive game. So I don't really want to ding him that much because there is ceiling and there's more back and forth in this game. If those games play to the spread and they get the hook early, that's Ewers and Howard and whoever else in blowouts. But this isn't likely to happen here. 2.5-point spread. Florida's weakness on defense is their secondary. They did a ton of work on it in the transfer portal, but I'm not sure it'll be enough. Miami's going to throw the ball a fair amount with Ward. He runs a little bit. So I like him. He just doesn't project quite as well because this game environment is tougher.
When you look at his pass catchers, a lot of names out there. We had a question about Horton and co. Are there any pass catchers that could be one-offs, or are they tied to Ward?
Horton I would not get to, but Restrepo, George, and Brown are interesting to me. They're going to throw the ball a fair amount, and those are just like elite talent players. I would rank them in that order too.
Let's talk about the Miami backfield. Then we have interesting question from FanDuel. I'll get to that. When you look at Miami, again, I really like their offensive line. I like a lot about them. Certainly like Damian Martinez, like the Mid-Oregon State. What do you make of the Miami backfield today?
Yeah, love Damian Martinez. He also is kind of a victim of competitive game, and you have so many good players on the slate. It's just tricky to get to him over other players, but I think he certainly should be in your pool. I'm actually trying to work on the back end and get less exposure to these just massively chalk running backs at the top to get more of these Damian Martinez types. I'm getting so much like Des Reed, LaQuint Allen, Jaden Blue, and they're all awesome. I have no problem with them, and Ollie Gordon. It's like I would like it to be a little more spread than that. So I'm trying to actively get some of these workhorse backs like Damian Martinez and bring them up the board a little bit.
Is it safe to say, on a macro level for the sites, it kind of feels like you've got a handful of really good cheap running backs, and then you've got the Ollie Gordon tags, and maybe the mid-range is a little barren?
Yeah, what do you consider mid-range? Will we consider Des Reed at 4.6 mid-range, or you mean above that?
I mean kind of above that, like the Maffa, Hemby. I'm not saying those guys aren't good. I'm saying it feels like they could be a little lost. I don't know.
I think they will be lost. Maffa in particular, just that game is going to be brutal for them. But Hemby, I think, is fine. They're massive favorites. He should be a workhorse back. I was very surprised by his props when they came out. Not a lot of people clicking Hemby's name in DFS or the prop market, apparently. So that makes me interested for sure.
On the other side of this game, Florida, we were talking before the show, the world's hardest schedule really doesn't help anyone. And it's certainly not going to help when their coach is updating his resume. on LinkedIn in a couple months after he gets fired for going like 4-8 with this brutal schedule. But if they could win this game, it would go a long way for him to save his job. And if he does that, Graham Mertz is going to play a big role. Graham Mertz was awesome. 20 touchdowns, 3 picks last year. I was extremely impressed. Former Wisco guy. What do you expect from him? And like I said, he's at home. They got a fighting chance in this game. This isn't a lopsided spread, but it does seem like a tall task.
With Mertz, I think the analysis is super easy. He takes too many sacks to play in DFS, unless you're playing the large field tournaments. Elite passer, last year his numbers were actually incredible and surprised me. It's just when you're going to take 4 sacks in the game and you face a fierce pass rush, I actually just X'd him out.
Does that make his receivers as one-offs more interesting because you're not going to accrue, -4 for his 40 yards lost on the ground? But a guy like Wilson or Badger or any of these guys, are they playable and where do they rank?
Yeah, I think especially Wilson in particular, he's just the proven commodity coming off an elite season last year. Badger, they listed as a co-starter, so I don't have as much interest in him. But you go to the receivers, they actually added a Wisconsin transfer, to come in with some familiarity with our good friend Graham Mertz, and he's very cheap. That's Chimere Dike. So I think you could play him. He was listed as a clear starter, so I have some interest there.
Couple random questions I'm going to try to throw at you real quick. A question on FanDuel. Would you rather have TJ Harden or Jaden Blue?
I think Blue. I already did FanDuel. I can't remember what I did, but just off the top of my head, that's where I would go.
Some questions about Restrepo. We're on that game. Is he cash viable? Is he firmly in play? What do you look to in terms of his output today for the U?
Probably not cash viable, but I think he's completely fine.
Robinson, I assume that's the Georgia back, or Desmond Reed.
Reed.
Yeah, it would be Reed for me too. All right. Ooh, look who's next. What everybody's been waiting for. A little Akron action right in our lives. Standard 50-point underdogs for the Zips. The game, Ohio State's a 48.5-point favorite, and the total in the game is 57.5. I'm not a math genius, but I can calculate pretty quickly that Akron's team total is quite bad. I assume that there is no situation where Akron should be gracing your lineups.
Correct.
For Akron. Let's see. Just let me look at one thing real quick. Oh, this is good because Akron's so relevant. You can go backwards and there's no penalty. Is DK or Dike pivot off Gadsden?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Gadsden's better, but you're looking at a pivot for a reason, exactly. I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's 100%. Thoughts on Felton?
He's fine, just probably not stacking.
Yeah, again, it's going to be an interesting game. I'm going to make time to watch that game. All right, there's nothing I can even spin with Akron. They're so irrelevant that it's just a tough scene. I will say I will bet Akron this year. It's just not going to be today, obviously. But on the other side, I think the best team, if you told me who's winning it, I would say Ohio State this year. I think they are the best team. Their secondary is maybe the best unit I've ever seen. None of this matters today. What does matter today, though, is what you alluded to earlier. What do you think their goals are? Like, is it to get Will Howard 6 touchdowns? Is it to get out of this game without any injuries? Is it to get Judkins integrated? What do you think Ohio State does? And ironically, are they even a premier team on the slate, given how big of favorites they are?
Yeah, they're going to slaughter this team. It's just how many touchdowns can really go around, and I'm not sure. So I don't have a good feel on what they do. They have a lot of guys that they need to try to get the ball to. Henderson, Judkins. They're breaking in 2 new receivers for the most part. I know Carnell Tate played a little bit last year, but he's still a new starter. Same with Jeremiah Smith, first freshman ever start for them. I'm just kind of spraying around.
Is there any interest in actually stacking Ohio State?
Yeah. The receivers aren't expensive because we don't know what the pecking order looks like. So it's different from previous years.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. I'm just looking at the prices right now. It is reasonable. It's just, man. And then in terms of the backfield, you have any feel on 60-40, 50-50, 80-20, anything like that? Or do you even think it's like 30-30, 30-10?
I think it's probably going to be like, I don't know, 40-40 before the scrubs come in.
Okay, that's fair. Anything else from this game?
No.
Okay, let's catch up on some questions here. Would you take any of the Ohio State running backs? We just talked about that. We'll get to Raiola. Believe me, I want to talk about Nebraska, no doubt about it. Is there any Stoneman wide receivers in play today?
I can't remember who's the Stoneman.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean,
So I don't know. I'm using our tools and stuff to build lineups. I'm not looking at price side. Probably, I just don't know.
yeah, I mean, just looking at, again, the projections and whatnot, there's so many games and there's a lot of cheap, viable guys, but I didn't see a ton that popped off that low.
I mean, there's plenty that are close to it, like DK, Gadsden, or two we
That's
just
what I
talked
mean.
about.
They're just not the flat min. On FanDuel, just if you have them off the top of your head, running backs that stood out, was there anyone that kind of jumped off the page? Does it mirror kind of what we've already talked about with Blue and Reed and some of those guys, and obviously Gordon and Co. were some of the more expensive guys?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I just don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at,
I did that like 2 hours ago.
the slates, both of them, I think really just, I find them more stars and scrubs than normal. That's the kind of theme that I was going with a little earlier in this situation. But for me, I think you can really do a lot, both sites, not just on DraftKings. Can you play? So we talked a little about this. Can you play 4 running backs today instead of 2 QBs? I think you could always do it, but on a slate this big, you mentioned Superflex, most likely reserved for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I guess to put it in context, if you were building like 150, I probably wouldn't do that in more than like 20.
Is ETN playing? I have not seen any word on that. I assume
He's
that
out.
he is out. Yeah.
Yeah.
What running back do you think gets squeezed for cash? LaQuint, Allen, Reed, Blue, or Gordon?
Gordon.
Yeah. Favorite money line. We talked about that. If I had to bet an early game, it would probably be Georgia, but I didn't even bet it myself.
I'm considering betting it. It's not at 10.5.
If it hits 10, I will bet it, but I don't, if you're using the boost, and again, this is the type of stuff on the on our Discord, on the marketplace, we talk about all the time. You definitely want to use it. Even if you're taking an efficient line, you'll bring it into plus EV territory. No doubt about it. Milrow or Drones?
Milrow.
Yeah, but it's close. Jeff Williams, appreciate that super chat. Playing the 4-4-4. Well, first of all, good luck. $4,400 or less wide receiver. Let's take a look for our man who super chatted us.
Okay, 4,400 or less.
Yeah, on DraftKings.
Okay, get this to load. All right. $4,400 or less. It's a tricky range.
Yeah.
The highest guys for me are like Hudson Clements at 44, Tyler Brown's at 43. Honestly, I'd probably go cheaper than that and maybe reconfigure your lineup. Like Raphael Williams projects for more than those guys at 38. Gadsden projects the best of the people I've mentioned so far at 35. DK is third at 33. So I don't know, maybe if you go down to like the mid 3K range, you could upgrade something else you have, and you're taking a higher projected player. Now you will be eating more ownership. Like Gadsden's going to be vastly more owned than like Clement at 44, but the 4-4-4 is not a huge tournament anyway.
No, you definitely have some maneuverability there. All right, last question, then we're going to move on. Another super chat, which is appreciated on FanDuel. Top 2 quarterbacks. Let's see what I can pull up here.
You already named him. I think it's Drones and Milrow.
Yeah, so again,
Milrow is a wagon on FanDuel.
He really is. That's what I was about to say. Certainly a wagon. All right, let's keep it moving. And again, we'll keep firing off questions. We're juggling a lot of things here. This guy is doing, who knows what he's doing.
Trying to figure out my life.
Well, you and me both, my friend. At least you didn't bet German soccer this morning. Let me tell you. Miami of Ohio and Northwestern. Close competitive game, low total though. Miami of Ohio, premier team in the MAC this year. But on a 12-game slate, how premier are they really on this DFS landscape?
I'd X them out.
Yeah, sorry. The MAC is not getting a lot of love on the show today. Is Northwestern?
Northwestern, I think you can play Cam Porter, and that's it.
So it's basically just a repeat of years past with them.
They're changing offenses too. They're going to be far more gimmicky and run heavy. So I don't like normally I would have some interest in Henning and Kurtz, but I think they're just going to just pound the ball to dust, especially in this matchup. So yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I did want to ask this real quick. We had a couple people ask about Pitt. They've changed schemes. Do you think that really affects anything?
Yeah, definitely in games that are competitive, they're just going to beat Akron to a pulp. I don't know what their plan is, but they hired the Western Carolina OC. He's an air raid guy. But this is also the kind of game where what are you really showing against Kent State? We have let me see what their pass rate projected is for us. It's reasonable. It kind of splits the difference. We have them at 46% pass, which would be definitely low for that offense, but they're also 4-score favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll see. Like I said, over time, things can change. It is Kent State. All right. Let's get to, we got 2 games left. We're making pretty good time, and we will get to things. Stuff like Prize Picks. Again, I know we're juggling a lot of things. You dropped a bunch of props. You dropped last night an awesome sheet in your marketplace. I was checking that out of all different props with all different kind of Versar projections. So for something like that, again, the packages, they come with the Pick'em. It's a great tool. The tools on Outchopper plus everything that Matt's doing, with Live Before Lock, it is a little tricky with that. Ohio and Syracuse. Syracuse should be better this year. There's no doubt about it. I'm a little bullish on them. Ohio's another MAC team. Do they creep in, or are they just relegated to the shadow world again?
We don't know what they're doing. So Parker Navarro should be their quarterback. We don't know their running back situation. Some places think Ricky Hunt's going to play. Some places don't. I truly don't know. Their receivers are a disaster. They lost everybody. I think everyone who caught a pass from their team last year is no longer on the roster. So, nice. Yeah, it's always nice when you have that to look back on, but that's about it. I don't think you can play anyone in this team. It is a complete and utter mess.
On the other side, Syracuse at one point was using a tight end at quarterback. There was a lot going on there last year. I very, very disturbing. Now Kyle McCord comes in. I'll be interested to see what he gives them. But for DFS, is that the type of quarterback that we're looking to in kind of that mid-range?
I was debating him earlier. Another player with some stink on his name. A lot of it deserved. Going down in competition, playing a MAC school that has basically like 2 returning starters, and they're 17-point favorites. Everyone's playing LaQuint Allen. I do think you can get some leverage playing McCord. This is a large field tournament play. Their team total's massive. Completely new coaching staff. I think they try to break him in a little bit. It's just, I still think he's pretty far down the list, making him, more of like a large field tournament play.
Any interest in putting him with Allen?
Yeah, Allen's a great pass catcher. You could certainly do that. I wouldn't do it in a lot of lineups, though.
On the outside, what do you expect to be the order of operations out there for Syracuse?
I don't know. They added some Georgia transfers. Their depth chart was a mess. I would tentatively say like Umari Hatcher as your 1, Trevor Pena, and then some combination of like Zeed Haynes or, yeah, that's about it. The real number 1s are tight end. It's Gadsden. So I would just kind of forego those receivers unless you're playing a huge portfolio lineups, and instead use Gadsden.
Last question on this game. Are you okay using Gadsden and Allen, no quarterback?
Yeah. Largely because Gadsden is severely underpriced.
That's what I was about to say. Combined, they're sub 9K. So that's pretty, you can really pay up elsewhere. Horton or Restrepo for DK cash?
Restrepo.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. Drones and Holstein, 2 QBs for cash.
I would probably not use Holstein, but you can definitely use drones.
Yeah, everyone gotta love drones. All right, let's get to the last game because it's actually a pertinent one, not because of UTEP. UTEP, new regime, just very bad things there. They are 4-touchdown underdog. It's very bad. I assume the minors don't factor into your plans today. When you look at the tools, not popping up a lot.
Yes.
Okay. Nebraska. They got bigger games. I can't wait to see. I'm going to have some hot takes with their game in the very near future, but that's not for right now. Let's talk about the new era. Every year, of course, with Nebraska, it's like this is the year, and then it's not. But Raiola's got a lot of hype around him. What do you expect from the freshman?
I think they're going to pass more than last year. They were kind of forced into a disastrous situation, which he should have opportunity. Efficiency is a complete question. We have no idea really, but he's the best quarterback I think we probably will have seen there in some time. So I'm definitely interested. Just not sure what he really gives you, but they have better receivers too. Like Banks comes in. Should be pretty interesting offensive situation for this team. I think Raiola's fine in stacks, largely with Banks in there.
Can he move at all?
No, not at least not based on his high school. Which
Well,
take that for what it's worth, but I did look.
Okay. No, because that's important. You know, I think when you do that, for him to really hit his ceiling, then you're talking 300-yard bonus. You're talking a concentration of targets to some of these guys. You're not talking about 100-yard bonus. I think that's really important for some of those. Anything else from Nebraska in terms of the backfield or anything, or is this really Raiola and those guys?
They're going to have a four-way committee. There's no real deciphering it right now.
There is nothing that I've seen to indicate that ETN is playing.
He's out. He's out. They ruled him out.
Yeah. So I know he's warming up. He might just be warming up to stand there. But
I'm playing zero of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking. I don't see anything on there besides Drone's favorite cash quarterback.
This is a really hard question. I'm not playing cash.
Let me look.
I guess if you made me pick, I'm going to say Will Howard. I don't feel good about that.
Ooh, I did not think you were going to say that. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't feel good about it.
9K left super flex. Do you like Cam Ward? I think that's a great low owned GPP play. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I agree.
Is Malachi Coleman in play?
He was listed third on the depth chart. Rest in peace, Malachi. Their former 4-star from last year. Not cutting it.
Let's see. Would you rather have Brennan Presley for Oklahoma State or Restrepo for Miami?
Restrepo.
Yeah, I would agree. The Oklahoma State. Any insight into you? Sorry, God, this guy, Zach Walsh. You're speaking to the right person because there's no one that likes UNLV football as much as the man that I'm talking to right now. That's your team. Any insight into that game at all?
Well, we don't know who they're playing at quarterback, so that is good start. They should. I like them in the game. I bet them. I just don't know what they're going to do with the QB situation. Jaden Thomas should be fine. Ricky White's a stud. Play those guys, and if they name a starter last second, we'll have projections updated. I just don't know who it is right now.
So yeah, and we talked about, some of the top plays. We talked about the quarterbacks. At running back, you've got the pay down options. You've got Allen. You've got Reed. Certainly Ollie Gordon. On the outside, I think it's a little tougher. When you look at the wide receivers, to me, that's the toughest position today. It's a lot of names.
Yeah, trying to spray as much as I can.
Yeah, Gadsden the pay down. Certainly, I think you could go get Restrepo. Love it. Yeah, there's a lot there. Tootin or Blue? That's an interesting one.
Blue.
Yeah, I think you can play both for what it's worth. Ricky White or Tez Johnson?
Ricky White.
Yeah, I mean, the FanDuel's got some wild games. Like Oregon's on that slate. They're going to win by like 600.
On the night slate.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, again, I know we went through a lot. I will say, there's always more. If you have questions, Matt_Gajewski at JazzRazBets. We are happy to help. We are always around, even if, again, you should hop in the Discords. There's no doubt about it. And you certainly should take advantage of the game day promo. But if you're not, we're always still here to help here at Stokastic. No doubt about it. Wilson or Presley on the outside? Eugene Wilson, that is.
Eugene Wilson.
Yeah, I would agree. Costly, but you can make it work here. Last thing for me, and we still have some time, so if you have some questions, let us know before we bounce out of here. I do want to mention real quick, this stuff is important. Again, so much going around. If you're looking for opportunities, one of the best ways to take advantage of it is deals, not just for products, but for sites. If you're in a betting state and Bet365 is there, they're offering still the 5 into 150. And what that means is if you deposit $10 and bet 5 on any of these games, even if you lose, even if you bet Jacksonville State like me and they lost by like 60 points, you would get $150 in bonus bets. It's a great way to build a bankroll. Obviously, these things don't come around all the time. When they're there, if you are really looking to build out and have the option and the flexibility, it's a great way to do it. So obviously, those links, they are there right in the description of this video. If you're in a state, take advantage. You got to be 21 plus, of course. 18 in Kentucky. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Does DraftKings pay you to not work FanDuel into the content? No, but they should. Anything else? Virginia Tech, Nebraska stack. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with both those teams. Pretty healthy totals.
Yeah, I'm sorry about FanDuel. Just kind of working with my hands behind my back right now.
It's just, it's 12 games in 60 minutes. That's 5 minutes a game. Try to get them in, but certainly can do more of that.
Yeah, my apologies. We will do more of that in the future.
Gabe Irvin for Nebraska in play.
He's on a 4-way committee.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a little. Banks or Wilson?
Is this Eugene Wilson?
I would assume so. That's what I was operating under.
Wilson.
Slim, friend of the show. And Oklahoma, he should be happy after last night. Putting you on the spot. Is Raiola going to be good or not?
He's going to be good.
Yeah, I think so too. Which just means Adrian Martinez part 2. Play some Pitt versus Kent State. I say it. That's a dumpster fire game. But if you're going to do it, it's obviously on that side. I mean, my final thoughts as we kind of grind this down. When you look at just look at the sidebar, you have 3 or 4 games, massive favorites. The one team is rendered basically useless, and on the other team, we just don't know how long those guys are going to go. And then you've got 3 or 4 games, really good teams. Clemson, Georgia, Penn State, West Virginia, Miami, Florida. Miami of Ohio and Northwestern is just kind of irrelevant in general, but like competitive games, everyone's full go, but you're going up against a really confident defense. And I think that's really the theme of this slate. Mertz or Raiola? I would go Raiola.
Same.
Notre Dame money line, not for me. I am on the other side of that game. Wegman's going to have a big game tonight.
Agreed.
Donovan Smith, okay for FanDuel as a tournament play?
Yeah, he's great on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think so as well. Thanks for the awesome analysis. That's what I'm talking about, Honey Badger. Thank you. And honestly, guys, like I said, we're doing all sorts of things here, but if there's a segment or something that you want on this show is for you. You let us know. We will make it happen, no doubt about it. As we wind down here, we're going to peace on out, but that's the last thing I wanted to leave you with. Any final thoughts for the people, Mr. Gajewski?
Good luck today, everyone. It's a beautiful day. College football's back. Hope to see some winners out there.
Absolutely. Hope to see him. Hope you're rocking the Stokastic avatar. Absolutely take advantage of that. Let's make some money. Again, final reminder, take advantage of that game day promo. Great time to be involved and be a part of this community. It's just going to be a fun day of football, no matter what you're doing, whether you're betting, playing DFS, or just enjoying it as a fan. Hit the like button on your way out. Show us a little love, and we much appreciate it. But for me, for Matt, for the third member of the team, Mike Lawrence behind the glass, appreciate all you guys. Good luck today. See you next week.